Hey, Celtics Nation, what's going on? We're back, and the energy around Boston feels different right now. It's that mix of anticipation, curiosity, and a little bit of that early season nervousness that comes with watching this team take shape. You can already feel the chemistry brewing, the storylines forming, and the new faces trying to carve out their space in one of the most demanding locker rooms in the league. And honestly, that's what makes this time of year so much fun. Everything still feels possible. Let's talk about Joe Mazzulla for a second, because, man, the conversation around him has been fascinating. There's this big gap between how people think he is and who he actually seems to be. The internet clips, the viral press conferences, the intense sideline moments. They've painted a picture of a guy who's almost robotic, someone who lives and breathes basketball, doesn't care much about the human side. But the more you listen to what players have been saying, the clearer it becomes that there's a real bond forming behind the scenes. Guys like Anthony Simons have been talking about how Mazzulla has taken the time to know his family, to understand what makes him tick, to build something beyond just X's and O's. That's not the version of Mazzulla people on the outside usually see. We've also heard about him traveling during the offseason to connect with players one-on-one, spending time with Derek White out in Colorado, keeping up with Tatum during rehab, checking in with Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, and even guys fighting for roster spots. It's like he's quietly building a culture of accountability and connection. And honestly, for a team chasing another championship run, that matters more than most people realize. In the pros, when the money's huge and the egos can be even bigger, the coaches who thrive are the ones who manage to make everyone feel part of the same mission. Mazzulla seems to get that. He's intense, sure, but he's also building an environment where players know they'll be called out if they mess up, but not in a way that breaks them. More like a push to get better, to hold each other accountable. That's what's starting to define this team's identity. This season isn't going to be a walk in the park, though. Boston's opening schedule is no joke. The Sixers, Knicks, Pistons, Pelicans, Cavs, it's a gauntlet right out of the gate. And that's before you even factor in the Emirates Cup games, a couple of back-to-backs, and long stretches on the road. These early games are going to test the Celtics' depth, especially without the big-name safety nets like Porzingis, Tatum, or Holiday for portions of the preseason. It's when teams still figuring themselves out either sink or start to build something real. If Boston can grind through those first few weeks around the 500 mark, stealing a few wins against more established teams, that'll already be a strong statement about who they are. Now let's talk about who's got the most to gain and the most to lose in all this. Someone like Josh Minott has been one of the biggest surprises of the preseason. The energy he brings off the bench, the way he attacks every possession, it feels like he's playing to prove a point. He's throwing down dunks, celebrating like a guy who knows this might be his chance to stick in the rotation. And that's the thing. Right now, the runway is clear for him. Jordan Walsh's injury came at a rough time, and that opened a door. If Minott keeps up that level of aggression on defense and shows that he can create chaos in the best way possible, it's going to be hard for Mazzulla to keep him off the court. On the other side, though, there are players who haven't made the most of their minutes yet. Guys like Baylor Shyman have had a tough preseason so far. The shot hasn't fallen, and while the playmaking looks slightly better, it's not enough to offset the lack of shooting. In a system built on spacing and pace, that's a problem. There's still time, but with the way others around him have been stepping up, those opportunities are shrinking fast. And then there's the big man situation. Luka Garza, Neemias Queta, and the question of who earns those backup center minutes. Garza's offensive skill set is fun to watch. He screens well, stretches the floor a little, and can finish plays. But defensively, he's still a liability, and that's where things could get tricky. Queta hasn't looked sharp either, and it's left this weird, open competition for who's going to lock down that role. For Mazzulla, though, this kind of challenge might be exactly what he needs. His whole philosophy revolves around adaptability, building a team identity that doesn't rely on one superstar or one style. When he says it's not Mazzulla ball, it's Celtics ball, that's exactly what he means. Everyone's responsible. Everyone's accountable. It's not just on Tatum or Brown to carry the load. You can already see glimpses of that mindset when even young guys are calling out veterans for missed assignments. It's a culture shift, and if it sticks, it could be what pushes this group past the mental hurdles that have stopped them before. And you can't forget the personal stakes involved. Take Anthony Simons, for example. The guy's in this weird spot where if he breaks out this year, shooting lights out from deep, holding his own defensively, he's probably going to play his way out of Boston's budget. That's the irony of being on a loaded roster with cap restrictions. The better he plays, the more expensive he becomes, and someone else will be ready to hand him that massive contract. But that's also what makes this season so intriguing. Simons knows this is his shot to prove he can thrive on a contending team, not just put up numbers on a rebuilding one. He's going to get the most open looks of his career. If he converts those and keeps the defensive effort solid, he could easily become one of the biggest breakout stories of the year. And Mazzulla? He's got plenty on the line, too. His reputation around the league has grown, but fans are still divided. Some people see him as a sharp, innovative coach who just needs time to fully develop his system. Others think he's too stubborn, too reliant on the three-point shot, not flexible enough when the pressure hits. This season gives him the perfect chance to silence that narrative. With a roster that's not as star-heavy as before, he's going to have to prove he can elevate role players, find balance, and keep everyone bought in even when the losses start coming. If Boston finishes comfortably above 500 through that brutal stretch, he's got a legit case to be in the Coach of the Year conversation. But the Celtics aren't the only ones making moves or facing tough questions. Across the league, things are getting interesting fast. Teams like Dallas are tinkering with strange lineups, trying to figure out how to make Anthony Davis comfortable playing next to other bigs without sacrificing spacing. The whole dynamic around power forwards who can't shoot consistently has become one of the trickiest puzzles in modern basketball. It's a reminder that, even with all the talent in the world, fit still matters more than name value. That's something Boston understands deeply, especially after years of building around players who can adapt and switch roles on the fly. That brings us back to trade talk, the constant hum that never really stops around this franchise. People love to speculate about who might come to Boston next, but let's be honest, there's no big panic move that needs to happen right now. Still, if a guy like Daniel Gafford became available, that would raise some eyebrows. He's not a stretch five, but his rim protection and vertical presence fit exactly what this team could use off the bench. That kind of move wouldn't shake up the chemistry, but it would quietly make them tougher and more balanced. So here we are, just on the edge of a new season, with more questions than answers and a team that looks hungry to prove something. The vibes are good, sure, it's easy to say that before the first loss hits, but there's also something deeper this time. It feels like this version of the Celtics understands that success won't come just from talent or hype. It's about the little things, communication, trust, and a coach who's learning to blend intensity with connection. If that keeps growing, Boston might just surprise a lot of people once the real games begin. The more you watch this Celtics team come together, the more you start to notice a shift, not just in how they play, but in how they carry themselves. There's a looseness to the group, but it's the kind that comes from confidence, not complacency. The veterans are smiling more, the young guys are louder, and even in practices, there's this balance between fun and focus that feels rare for a team with real pressure to win. You can tell Mazzulla's influence runs deeper than most think. He's not trying to reinvent basketball, but he's clearly trying to reinvent how his team approaches it. Less robotic execution, more trust, more instinct. When you hear guys like Derek White and Jaylen Brown talk about how communication has improved, it doesn't sound like empty preseason talk. It sounds like a group that's genuinely starting to buy into something. One thing that stands out is how every single player seems to understand that their role might change at any moment. You miss a rotation, you're coming out. You hit a hot stretch, you're staying in. Mazzulla's not afraid to pull anyone. Not Tatum, not Brown, not a rookie. It's part of what he's been preaching since last season, accountability. He wants everyone to play like their spot isn't guaranteed, because that hunger keeps the edge sharp. It might frustrate fans when rotations look unpredictable, but for players, it builds awareness. Every possession matters, and that's the kind of mentality you need if you're going to survive a brutal Eastern Conference. And speaking of the East, it's loaded. The Sixers are still a mystery with all the drama that always seems to follow them. The Knicks have quietly built a nasty defensive identity. The Cavaliers are young and dangerous. And Milwaukee is, well, Milwaukee. Every single night is going to feel like a test. And that's why Boston's depth and adaptability will be crucial. This team doesn't just have to win. They have to learn how to win in different ways. Some nights the shots will fall and it'll look like a clinic. Other nights they'll need to grind out ugly wins, relying on stops and hustle. The Celtics of the past sometimes crumbled in those moments, but this version feels different. There's a bit more grit, a bit more maturity. You can sense that they've learned from those heartbreaks in the conference finals, from those stretches where focus slipped and the season went sideways. What makes this season even more intriguing is how much of it depends on players who aren't the headliners. Peyton Pritchard, for example, looks ready to explode. You can see the confidence dripping off him every time he steps onto the floor. He's quicker with his decisions, more assertive with his shot, and clearly motivated after getting that extension. Boston needs him to be more than just a spark plug. They need him to be a stabilizer off the bench, someone who keeps the offense flowing when Tatum sits. Then there's Sam Hauser, still trying to prove that his shooting alone can keep him in the rotation even when the defense gets tested. Those guys matter because championship teams aren't built on just 2 or 3 stars. They're built on the 8th and 9th men showing up when it counts. And you can't ignore the impact of someone like Drew Holiday. He's the kind of player who changes the tone of a game without even scoring. The leadership, the calm, the defense. He's a perfect complement to Mazzulla's system. Holiday brings this quiet toughness that seeps into the team's identity. You can see it rubbing off on the younger guys, especially when he takes the time to pull them aside mid-game or after a timeout. That kind of mentorship goes a long way over an 82-game season. It's not just about execution. It's about poise, and Holiday might be the key to unlocking that in Boston. Now, if we're being honest, the biggest question mark still sits around the frontcourt depth. Porzingis is elite when he's healthy, but when he's healthy, is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Al Horford remains one of the most respected voices in the locker room, but you can't expect him to log heavy minutes deep into the season. That's where someone like Neemias Queta or even Luke Cornett has to step up. Those backup big minutes might not make headlines, but they're going to decide games, especially against physical teams like the Cavs and the Bucks. If Boston can find consistent production from that group, rebounding, rim protection, a few easy putbacks, it'll go a long way toward keeping their stars fresh. But before we continue, please remember to subscribe to the channel and give the video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest news about the Boston Celtics. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. New York is in shock tonight as whispers around the NBA world have turned into a storm. Jalen Brunson, the very heart of the Knicks offense, reportedly agreed to join arch-rival Boston. Sources close to the player hint that the deal could be imminent, sending fans and insiders into a frenzy of speculation. Brunson, who has been a cornerstone of the Knicks' backcourt, suddenly becomes the centerpiece of what could be one of the most dramatic shifts in recent NBA history. For weeks, murmurs have suggested that Boston had its eyes on the rising star, but the idea seemed almost unthinkable. After all, the rivalry between New York and Boston is legendary, built on decades of tension and playoff battles that have fueled countless headlines. Now, the possibility that a Knicks favorite could be donning green and white has sparked both outrage and curiosity among the fan bases. Analysts are already debating the implications. Would Brunson's leadership and scoring prowess give Boston the edge it's been craving? Or is this simply a high-stakes gamble that could backfire, inflaming Knicks fans while failing to guarantee immediate success for the Celtics? The locker rooms in both cities are reportedly buzzing with anticipation, with teammates reacting in a mix of disbelief and cautious excitement. In New York, social media exploded the moment news of the signing leaked. Hashtags both mourning and mocking the transfer trended within minutes, as fans grappled with the idea of their star heading to the enemy. Meanwhile, Boston fans have embraced the rumor with a mixture of euphoria and disbelief, imagining Brunson orchestrating the offense alongside their established stars. The drama, The tension and the sheer audacity of the move are fueling non-stop speculation. Is this the beginning of a new dynasty, or just another headline that will vanish as quickly as it appeared? No official announcement has been made, but insiders suggest that the deal is very close. If true, the NBA landscape could shift overnight, turning the age-old Knicks-Celtics rivalry into something even more personal and intense. One thing is certain: basketball lovers from both coasts are watching, waiting, and buzzing with anticipation, because if Brunson really goes to Boston, the fallout will be unforgettable. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Boston Celtics, please subscribe to our channel and give the video a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.